Alma had just started her shift at the luxurious hotel where she worked as a housekeeper. She was new, quiet, and beautiful in an effortless way that made other workers curious about her past. That evening, she was tasked with cleaning the presidential suite, a room said to belong to the mysterious billionaire who rarely showed his face but whose presence loomed large in the entire building. She worked late into the night, ensuring everything was spotless. The room was more than a suite, it was practically a palace. Plush couches, silk sheets, golden accents. The soft music playing in the background and the subtle lavender scent in the air made it impossible to resist the overwhelming sleepiness creeping into her limbs. Alma told herself she'd rest for just 5 minutes, just 5, on the edge of the king-size bed. But 5 minutes turned into hours. She slipped into a deep sleep, curled innocently on the corner of the bed in her uniform. The door clicked open just after midnight. A tall man in a black suit walked in, unbuttoning his collar as he tossed his keys on the table. When he noticed the sleeping figure on his bed, he froze, confusion and curiosity washing over his handsome face. Billionaire Liam Hart had spent the night dealing with boardroom tensions and fake smiles at a private event he didn't enjoy. All he wanted was to crash in peace, but finding a woman asleep in his room was not part of the plan. At first, he thought she might be a setup, maybe a fan or someone from the staff playing games. But as he approached her, he saw the cleaning cart parked near the door and the way her shoes were still neatly lined beside it. She stirred at the sound of his footsteps, eyes fluttering open slowly. Panic immediately replaced sleep in her face as she jumped up from the bed. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to. I was just so tired. I didn't think you'd be back so soon, she stammered, cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Her heart pounded as she gathered her things, terrified she'd lose the job she desperately needed. Liam didn't yell or call security. He simply stared at her with a look that was unreadable. "You're lucky I'm not the kind of man who screams," he said, his voice low and calm. "But don't do this again." Alma nodded quickly and rushed out, her hands trembling. What she didn't know was that Liam wasn't angry, he was intrigued. Back in the staff quarters, Alma could barely sleep. She replayed the scene over and over, wishing she could take it back. Word hadn't gotten out, thankfully, but the fear of being fired still hovered over her. The next morning, she walked on eggshells, waiting to be called to HR or worse, but the call never came. Instead, she was summoned to clean the same suite again. She hesitated outside the door, unsure of what kind of reception awaited her. When she stepped in, the room was empty, but a note lay on the table. "Try not to nap this time." L was scrawled on the paper. Her face turned red. Was he mocking her? Or was he teasing? Either way, she quickly got to work, determined to redeem herself and leave a better impression this time. Meanwhile, Liam watched her discreetly from a monitor. There was something refreshing about her. She wasn't like the women who threw themselves at him or who tried to climb into his wallet. She didn't even know who he really was when she woke up that night. That genuine fear in her eyes, it stirred something unexpected in him. The days that followed were oddly quiet, yet charged. Alma continued her duties professionally, avoiding further mistakes, but she felt his presence even when he wasn't around. Sometimes, he'd be there when she arrived, calmly sipping coffee, pretending to be on the phone, yet his eyes would follow her every move. He never spoke unnecessarily, but his silence said more than words. Alma started catching herself dressing neater before entering his suite, brushing her curls out of her eyes more carefully. She told herself it was just respect for her job. But deep inside, a little voice whispered that it had become more than that. Each day felt like a strange game neither of them admitted they were playing. Then, one morning, a new housekeeper named Kira started and immediately picked up on the unusual energy. "You clean his room every day? Must be nice being the favorite," she said with a tone that could cut steel. Alma didn't reply, but Kira's jealousy simmered, and it was only a matter of time before it boiled over. Kira began shadowing Alma closely, offering to help clean Liam's suite even when not assigned. At first, Alma thought it was just new job eagerness. But soon it became clear, Kira was staking her claim. One day, while Alma was wiping the windows, she overheard Kira chatting with Liam in the lounge area, laughing a little too hard at his jokes and dropping compliments like confetti. Liam barely responded, yet Kira's persistence grew. Alma tried to focus on her work, pretending not to notice the way Kira lingered around the suite long after their shift should have ended. It didn't help that Kira also started spreading whispers among staff, saying Alma had done things to get favored by the boss. One afternoon, as Alma exited the suite, she found a folded paper tucked in her cleaning supplies. "Meet me here tonight. Don't worry, no cleaning involved." It was signed simply with an L. Her heart skipped. She didn't know if she should go. But curiosity, and something deeper, pulled her toward the unknown. Alma debated with herself the entire day. What if it was a trap? What if it was Kira trying to set her up? But the handwriting was unmistakably Liam's, smooth and controlled. That night, dressed in a simple dress she'd never worn before, she went to the rooftop bar mentioned in the note. Her palms were sweaty as she stepped into the candlelit corner where Liam was seated alone. He looked surprised but pleased that she came. "I didn't think you would," he said, gesturing for her to sit. Alma hesitated before sitting down. "Why am I here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Because I've been thinking about you. And I don't usually think about anyone." The silence between them was magnetic. Alma was confused, flattered, and cautious all at once. She didn't know what he wanted, but the warmth in his voice, the way he looked at her without judgment, it made her feel like she wasn't invisible anymore. She just didn't know yet if that was a blessing or a curse. Their rooftop meeting didn't end with declarations or kisses, just a lingering look and a promise from Liam, "You'll be seeing more of me." Alma tried to go back to work like nothing had happened, but her heart betrayed her. Every time she cleaned his room, her hands trembled slightly, her breath catching when she smelled his cologne still in the air. True to his word, Liam became more visible. He started joining her during cleaning, asking questions about her life, laughing at her dry humor. Staff began noticing, and whispers turned to stares. Kira, especially, was livid. She confronted Alma in the laundry room one evening, her voice laced with venom. "You think he'll ever be serious about someone like you?" Alma didn't reply. She didn't have the words. All she had was the lingering memory of Liam's eyes that night, eyes that saw her. But doubt had now been planted in her mind. She wasn't rich, stylish, or powerful. Could a man like him truly fall for someone like her, or was she just entertainment? Things escalated when Liam invited Alma to accompany him to an exclusive private dinner, not as a guest, but as his company. She wore the only elegant dress she had, and he didn't seem to notice it wasn't designer. He looked at her like she belonged. The evening was perfect, until they ran into a woman from Liam's past, glamorous and clearly territorial. "Oh, I see you've taken to the help," she said with a sly smile, glancing at Alma like she was disposable. Liam stiffened, but Alma excused herself before things got worse. She didn't belong in that world, and the sting of being belittled in public hit harder than she expected. Back at her quarters, she cried silently, realizing how easily it would be for Liam to go back to his real world. But to her surprise, Liam showed up that same night, furious, not at her, but at the woman. "Don't let anyone define your worth," he said, grabbing her hand. "Especially not someone I stopped loving a long time ago." It was the first time he'd said anything that sounded like love. And it terrified Alma more than anything. Alma tried to distance herself after that night. She couldn't afford to lose herself in someone who had 100 reasons not to choose her in the end. But Liam wasn't giving up. He began showing up at her workstations, bringing her coffee, and finding excuses to talk. The more she resisted, the more determined he became. Kira, meanwhile, was growing desperate. She tried to befriend Liam's assistant, leaking bits of gossip she'd made up about Alma, things about her past, her supposed intentions. Some of the rumors made it back to Liam, but he didn't believe any of it. Instead, he invited Alma to clean his penthouse at his private residence, alone. That night, the penthouse was quiet, and Alma worked as usual. Liam sat nearby, just watching her. After a while, he stood and walked over to her. "I don't want you to clean," he said softly. "I want you to stay." And for the first time, Alma didn't run. She stayed. The night was not what she feared. It was deeper, sweeter, filled with honest conversation and soft laughter. They shared stories, music, and glances that lasted a little too long. When Alma dozed off, it was not in fear, but with her head resting against Liam's shoulder. And this time, when she woke up, he was still there beside her. The following morning, Liam offered her breakfast. "You know, I've had chefs make dishes worth a fortune, and none of them felt as warm as just having toast with you," he said. Alma blushed, not knowing what to say. But this peace didn't last long. Back at the hotel, news of her spending the night at Liam's penthouse exploded. Kira was the source, having followed Alma discreetly the night before and taken a blurry photo of her entering Liam's private elevator. Now, the staff was buzzing, and Alma felt the judgment in every glance. The manager called her in, holding the photo in his hand. Alma was terrified she would be fired. But before the manager could say much, Liam walked into the office unannounced. "Is there a problem?" he asked, his tone sharp. The manager stammered, trying to explain. Liam didn't even let him finish. "Alma works for me. What she does on her own time is none of your concern." The room fell silent. The message was clear: Alma had his protection. But she didn't feel triumphant. She felt exposed. That night, she confronted Liam. "You can't keep rescuing me," she said, her voice shaking. "Every time you step in, you remind everyone how different we are. It makes it harder for me to stand on my own." Liam looked at her, pained. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I care, Alma. More than I expected to." She nodded but walked away. She needed time to think, time to figure out if this was love or just infatuation born from admiration. The lines were blurring too fast. Alma began avoiding him again, pouring herself into work and refusing his calls. But Liam wasn't the only one noticing her absence. Guests began asking for her by name, her kindness, her attention to detail. Her absence created ripples. Even some staff who had once mocked her now spoke of her with respect. It didn't go unnoticed by hotel management. One afternoon, the general manager called her in. She feared another confrontation but was shocked when he offered her a promotion, supervisor of guest services. It was a major leap, and though she suspected Liam had a hand in it, the manager assured her, "You earned this. Everyone sees it but you." For the first time, Alma stood a little taller. Liam found her that evening, standing on the same rooftop where they first spoke alone. "You did it," he said with pride in his eyes. "And I had nothing to do with it." She nodded, smiling. He held out his hand. "Come with me." No pressure, no expectations. Just, "Let's take a walk together." And this time, Alma didn't hesitate. Their relationship slowly blossomed in secret. Late-night walks, quiet dinners, and mornings filled with silent glances across hotel lobbies. It was real. It was fragile. But it was theirs. However, not everyone was pleased. Kira, feeling completely replaced, made one last move. She printed flyers with Alma and Liam's photo from the penthouse night, adding her own false headline, "From cleaning to climbing, how to sleep your way to the top." By the next morning, the hotel walls were littered with them. Guests whispered. Staff snickered. Alma was crushed. She locked herself in the staff quarters, humiliated beyond words. Liam tore down every flyer he could find and held a press meeting that afternoon. He didn't just defend her, he introduced her. "This woman is not just someone I care about. She is someone I admire. And she earned her way here." It was the boldest thing he'd ever done. The press went wild. But so did Kira. She was fired immediately, escorted out in disgrace. Alma watched from a distance, still unsure whether she should be grateful or afraid of how public everything had become. The pressure didn't ease. Liam started facing pressure from his board members and family, who questioned his choices. His father, a powerful figure in the industry, demanded a private meeting. "You're risking everything for a girl who changes sheets," he sneered. Liam's voice was calm but cold. "Then I guess everything wasn't worth much to begin with." Alma, overhearing part of the conversation, realized the cost Liam was paying. She began to withdraw again, feeling like a burden. "You shouldn't have to choose between me and your future," she told him one night. "Then stop trying to walk away," he replied. "You're part of my future, if you'll allow it." But before she could decide, a new twist emerged. An investor pulled out of one of Liam's major projects, citing personal instability in leadership. The press latched on. His image was tarnished. And once again, Alma felt like the root of it all. Alma couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the night wind as guilt tore through her like a storm. Everything Liam had built was under threat because of her. And no matter how much he claimed she wasn't the reason, the headlines, the rumors, and the glares all said otherwise. She wrote him a note, folded it with trembling hands, and left it at his door before disappearing into the night. Liam woke up to find the note. "You deserve a world without baggage. And I deserve a world where I don't constantly feel like I'm destroying someone else's dream. Thank you for seeing me." He read the words over and over again before launching into action. He called every connection, every friend, searched every staff record, but Alma was gone. She had resigned from the hotel and changed her number. No one knew where she went. Liam, despite his growing troubles with the media and business, spent days searching for her. He even offered a reward for information, not to shame her, but because he couldn't breathe without her. He didn't want the empire. He wanted Alma. Far from the city, Alma worked at a small local inn under a fake name. Her heart ached every time she thought of Liam, but she convinced herself it was for the best. The world they came from was never going to let them be happy. Here, she was safe. Invisible again. Until one rainy night, a luxury car pulled up outside the inn. She didn't recognize it at first. But when Liam stepped out, drenched and exhausted, her breath caught in her throat. "I've been to 5 towns. 32 inns. I was ready to go to 100 more," he said, his voice raw. "But I'm not leaving without you." Almost stood frozen. It was all too much, his eyes, the rain, the pain in his voice. "I never needed perfect," he said. "I just needed real. And you, Alma, you're the realest thing in my life." She broke down in tears, and without a word, ran into his arms. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe she could belong in someone's heart without apology. They didn't return to the city right away. For a few weeks, they stayed in the quiet town, away from the flashing cameras and judgmental eyes. Liam rediscovered the joy of simplicity, walking barefoot, laughing without being followed, and waking up to the smell of homemade food Alma had prepared herself. In those weeks, their love deepened. Not as billionaire and housekeeper, but as two souls who had found each other in an unlikely place. They talked about their fears, their childhoods, and the future. Liam asked her one night, while stargazing, "Would you ever marry someone like me?" Alma smiled. "I wouldn't marry someone like you," she said. "But I would marry you." They returned to the city hand in hand. This time, not in hiding, but in defiance. The media buzzed, but Liam made no statements. Instead, he made a move that shocked everyone. He stepped down from his executive role and started something new, on his own terms, with Alma beside him. Liam launched a boutique hotel, smaller but more personal, designed to feel like home, not a kingdom. And Alma, to everyone's surprise, was his partner. She wasn't just helping, she was designing staff policies, choosing colors, arranging the feel of every guest room. She became the heartbeat of the new place. Critics laughed at first, calling it a passion project doomed to fail. But then came the guests, celebrities, influencers, wealthy travelers, all charmed by the hotel's warmth and elegance. Alma's natural intuition for comfort and Liam's eye for luxury became an unbeatable pair. Meanwhile, Kira attempted a public comeback, aligning herself with another hotel group. But her bitterness showed, and no one forgot what she had done. She faded into the background, while Alma and Liam's names rose, associated now not with scandal, but with a rare kind of magic that couldn't be faked. As the new hotel thrived, Alma and Liam's bond only grew stronger. But one evening, Alma got a letter. It was from her estranged mother, who had left when she was a child. She had seen Alma in a magazine and wanted to meet. Conflicted, Alma kept it from Liam at first. She didn't want to bring the past into the future they were building. Eventually, she told him everything. Liam didn't push, he simply said, "I'll be there if you decide to meet her." That support gave Alma the courage. She met her mother at a quiet cafe, and it was awkward, emotional, painful. But also healing. For the first time, Alma forgave not for her mother's sake, but for her own. Returning home, she found Liam had transformed their living room into a warm space filled with childhood photos she'd never seen. He had asked her old neighbors for them. "You can keep the good parts and still let go of the rest," he said softly. Alma realized she hadn't just found a lover, she had found her home. Months passed, and Alma became a household name in the industry, not because of scandal, but because of her skills. She gave motivational talks to young workers, helped train housekeepers, and changed perceptions everywhere. People began to see her not as the girl who lucked out, but as the woman who transformed her life through courage. Liam, watching her flourish, fell deeper in love every day. But he had one surprise left. On the anniversary of the night she first fell asleep in his hotel room, he recreated the entire space, same sheets, same flower on the nightstand, same soft jazz playing in the background. Alma walked in, confused. "Why does this look like?" Liam smiled, pulled out a small velvet box, and knelt down. "Because it was the moment I knew you changed everything. Will you marry me?" Alma laughed and cried at once. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. The wedding wasn't grand, it was beautiful. Just close friends, simple flowers, a garden lit with fairy lights. Alma walked down the aisle not in a designer gown but in a dress she'd sewn pieces of her old housekeeping uniform into, because she never wanted to forget where she came from. Liam was emotional. The man who had once seemed untouchable now stood vulnerable, eyes glistening with tears as he vowed to love her not just in comfort, but in chaos too. Their vows weren't perfect, but they were real, and everyone felt it. That night, instead of a 5-star honeymoon, they spent it at the first boutique hotel room they built together. No one knew, but they didn't care. It was their story, and they were living it their way. No filters. No edits. Marriage brought a new rhythm to their lives, but it wasn't without challenges. While Alma embraced her new role, she still felt eyes on her, judgmental ones, jealous ones. Some guests whispered when they saw her managing staff. Some staff still didn't believe she belonged. It was subtle, but it chipped away at her confidence. Liam noticed. He pulled her into his office one afternoon and said, "You don't need anyone's permission to belong here, Alma. You already earned it." To prove his point, he had her portrait framed and hung in the lobby beside his own, not as his wife, but as co-founder. She was stunned, touched beyond words. That day, one of the junior staff members nervously approached her. "Ma'am," the girl stammered, "you give people like me hope." Alma smiled softly. "Then don't waste that hope. Let it turn into something bold." And from then, Alma walked through those halls with her head held higher. Their hotel became more than just a destination, it became a phenomenon. Celebrities booked months in advance, magazines featured them regularly, and Alma's story spread like wildfire. But with popularity came risk. A rival hotel launched a smear campaign, spreading false stories about Alma's past, trying to drag her down. Liam was ready to file lawsuits. But Alma stopped him. "Let me handle this," she said. She arranged a live interview, speaking candidly about her journey, from a tired housekeeper who accidentally slept in a guest's room to a woman who built her own dream. She didn't deny anything. She owned it. The public rallied behind her. Her grace and honesty silenced the critics. The rival hotel? Publicly shamed and forced to apologize. Alma didn't rejoice in their downfall. She simply went back to work, stronger and more respected than ever before. Amidst the whirlwind of success, something unexpected happened. Alma discovered she was pregnant. At first, she was scared. She had just found her footing, her rhythm. How would a child change everything? She hid the news for weeks, unsure of how Liam would react. But when she finally told him, Liam froze. Then he laughed, a full, joyful laugh she hadn't heard in ages. He scooped her up, spun her around, and kissed her forehead. "You've given me 1,000 gifts, Alma. But this one's my favorite." They began preparing, converting one of the hotel suites into a nursery. The staff was thrilled. Guests brought gifts. And through it all, Alma kept working, not because she had to, but because she loved it. Her pregnancy didn't slow her down, it made her shine brighter. As her belly grew, so did their bond. Liam became more protective, more tender. He talked to the baby every night, read stories aloud, and even started planning kids' play zones for the hotel. Alma would laugh and say, "You're more excited than me." And truthfully, he was. But not all moments were easy. One night, Alma fainted from exhaustion. She had pushed herself too hard. Liam rushed her to the hospital, terrified. The doctors calmed him, it was stress and fatigue, nothing critical. But the scare shook them both. From then, Liam insisted she rest more. He took over her tasks, even shadowing her on how to fold towels the way she liked. Alma, lying in bed, watched him with love in her eyes. "You're not the man I fell in love with," she whispered. "You're even better." Their child, a healthy baby girl, was born under soft music and dim lights. Liam cried more than Alma. "She's got your eyes," he whispered, holding their daughter. "And your heart," Alma replied, exhausted but smiling. They named her Mila, a name that meant grace in Alma's old language. Mila became the star of the hotel. Staff took turns babysitting. Guests asked for updates. Alma and Liam's suite became a place of laughter and lullabies. But parenthood wasn't all joy. Sleepless nights, spit-up stains, and teething tantrums tested their patience. But through it all, they remained a team. When one was tired, the other stepped up. When one got frustrated, the other brought calm. Their love evolved, it wasn't just passionate now. It was steady, deep, and rooted in something real. A year later, the hotel chain expanded to a second location. Alma and Liam traveled with baby Mila in tow, recreating the same magic they had started with. This new hotel included a Hope Suite, dedicated to staff who rose through the ranks just as Alma did. One morning, Alma walked in and found a note on the desk. It was from a former housekeeper turned guest manager. "Because of you, I believed I could be more." Alma sat on the edge of the bed and cried softly. Her journey had gone full circle. Liam walked in and found her there. She handed him the note, and he read it quietly. Then he looked at her with the same love he had on the first day they met. "You changed more than your own life, Alma. You changed mine. And now you're changing others too." They returned home one evening to find the lobby filled with candles and familiar faces. It was a surprise party, celebrating 5 years since the opening of their first hotel. Staff members old and new stood proudly, many of them wearing badges that read "Inspired by Alma." Alma was speechless. Then the lights dimmed, and a projector began to play clips of her journey, secret recordings of her folding sheets, welcoming guests, organizing towels, and standing beside Liam through storms. The final clip? Mila running down a hallway, squealing, "Mommy." She broke down in tears. Liam held her close and whispered, "The girl who once slept off in my room is now the woman who gave me a life worth living." That night, they danced like teenagers. It wasn't the music that moved them, it was the memories. But just when they thought life had settled, Liam received a job offer, one that would take them to another continent. It was tempting. Prestige. Power. And the chance to build something massive. Alma listened quietly, then asked, "What do you want?" Liam looked at her, then at Mila. "I want mornings with her. Nights with you. I want to kiss your forehead before work and fall asleep hearing her laughter. I don't want more, I want enough. And just like that, he declined the offer. Not because he lacked ambition, but because he had found what really mattered. Instead, they opened a training academy for hotel staff from poor backgrounds. Alma led classes, trained students, and shared her story over and over, not for praise, but so that no one ever had to believe they were stuck where they started. Years passed. The story of the housekeeper who slept off in a billionaire's room became legendary. New hires still whispered about it with wonder. Guests asked to stay in that famous suite. But to Alma, it was never about fame, it was about what came after. She walked through the halls one evening, now older, wiser, and still glowing. She peeked into the suite where it all began. Liam was there, sitting with Mila, who was now a curious little girl flipping through her mother's old staff ID. "Was this really you, Mommy?" Alma nodded, kneeling beside her. "Yes. And I'd do it all over again, exactly the same way." Liam leaned in, kissed her hand, and whispered, "Thank you for sleeping in that room." They all laughed. And just like that, the lights dimmed, the night softened, and their story, as wild and beautiful as it had been, continued with peace, purpose, and never-ending love.